Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning and other in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Poza from the Pennsylvania Keys is the host of the program and is here with us throughout the series. Morning, John, and who do we have on the line this morning?
Thanks, Joe. This morning, I am very pleased to welcome Blair Hyatt. Blair is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Head Start Association. Blair has served in this capacity for nearly 12 years, and he's always focused his professional and community work on improving the lives of young people and their families. Previous to this position, Blair worked as the Manager of Family and Community Partnerships for the Philadelphia Parent-Child Center. He's taught parenting skills, started a parenting center. He's helped start a therapeutic nursery for preschool-aged children, and he actually built a model wraparound services program, sort of like a jack of all trades. Welcome to the program, Blair.
Good morning. I'm really glad to be with you this morning.
Thanks, Blair. You know, I know we've been trying to get you on the program. You're quite a busy person, but I'm glad that we finally have you. I want to start out by asking you, obviously, we've now been in a full year with new administration in Harrisburg and Governor Wolf. Tell us what's new. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with Head Start in Pennsylvania and how it will impact early learning programs and families.
Great. Well, we're really fortunate. Head Start has worked, it just celebrated its 50th anniversary last year. Started out as a federal program in 1965. And while the majority of our funding here in the state is still federal funding, there's over $214 million of Head Start money that provides about Head Start programs for 3- and 4-year-olds for about 25,000 children. There's federal funding for early Head Start, which is 0 to 3, about $50 million in funding federal that provides about 5,400 children an early Head Start experience. But in the last 10 years, more and more states have been focusing on early learning, and Pennsylvania is representative of that. Pennsylvania now provides additional money so more children can have a Head Start program, and we currently serve 4,600 children with about $36 million of funding through the Head Start state supplemental funding. In that context, the most current really good news is even though we don't have a budget and we need those of us that are membership organizations and our members need to keep urging our leaders that we need a complete budget for the state, the money that has been appropriated and approved by the governor is allowing us to expand the supplemental funding for Head Start, and we will be able to serve another 1,000 children with an additional $5 million that's been released to expand the Head Start services that are funded through the state. So that's the most current news as of just yesterday. We are fortunate, and I want to emphasize that Head Start has worked very hard since its inception 50 years ago, but also here in Pennsylvania, to be a bipartisan, nonpartisan program. It has had incredible support both from Republicans and Democrats. A concrete example of that is that the state Head Start supplemental funding was advocated for years and created by the late Senator Rhodes, who was a Republican. So in a place where much politics has turned into partisanship, we work really hard to remember that this is a program that children are everyone's responsibility, and both sides of the aisle have seen value in that.
The common image...
I'd like to say a little bit about the governor. We have a governor whose priorities are schools that teach, jobs that pay, and government that works. and we've already watched the hiring and the implementation of Secretary Rivera, Secretary Dallas, and Deputy Secretary Michelle Fiegler, and all of them have actively engaged with PHSA and with the Head Start community about how do we create early learning programs, and the best thing that they know that can improve schools is early childhood education. They are also concerned and have actively engaged in the whole discussion of not just increasing the number of children that are being served, but also how do we make sure that we have high quality. And a key issue for high quality is jobs that pay. Head Start teachers don't get paid very well, and it's one of the reasons that programs struggle and sometimes around quality, because people often leave these jobs because they need better paying jobs. And so we've seen the emphasis be applied to us about schools that teach, jobs that pay, and government that works, and the kind of communication we've seen. So it's been really hopeful. It's going to help us continue to move forward, not just Head Start, but all of early learning through the Office of Child Development and Early Learning. And then I think the most concrete part is the federal government last year, in 15, released a new set of funding, Early Head Start Child Care Partnership funding, an additional $13.7 million. And the Office of Child Development and the Head Start State Collaboration Office have worked really closely with PHSA to figure out how to make those partners successful and how to work with our subsidized child care system, the CCIS system, so that it supports those partnerships. So one of the concrete things we've been working on at a time where mainly we've been struggling with budget impasses to how to use this new federal money effectively and have it really work to improve the quality of child care and increase these partnerships. So it's a really exciting time for Head Start and also for early learning in general under the new administration.
The common image of Head Start is that it's a program that deals with poor kids from inner city neighborhoods. Can you talk about a little bit about how Head Start serves the more rural areas like ours here in the north central and northwestern parts of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so Head Start is in every county in the state, and it serves rural people just as much as it serves urban. If you look at it, about 1/3 of the families are African American, 1/3 are some version of Hispanic, and 1/3 are Caucasian, white, European American heritage families. So not only is this a program that serves urban, rural, and suburban, but it also serves really diverse communities, including, so the tendency is to look at it as urban, but in fact it is in every county. And the other part that's really important is, particularly in rural counties where there's not a lot of resources, the Head Start program's often one of the few resources that families go to, not just for like a preschool experience, but for help getting jobs, help thinking about healthcare issues, because Head Start is not just about the child, it's about supporting the whole family, so that as that child leaves the Head Start program, the parent or parents or the caretakers are in a position to hopefully keep that child succeeding in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. I think one thing would be helpful, the Pennsylvania Head Start Association has a website. It's www.PAHeadstart.org. And if you go there on the front page, there's a little sign that says Find Your Local Program, and there's a map of the whole state, and you can click on any county in the state and learn what the Head Start program is, how many children it serves, and all of that. So if anyone wants to see in detail how many children are served in what counties, all that information's on that website. So it's www.paheadstart.org.
Yeah, that's Blair. Of course, they can find out information concerning income requirements to be eligible for Head Start on the site, as well as all sorts of other things. But I think what Joe was alluding to in terms of the urban perception of Head Start is, yes, it is in every county, but often what happens is the access issue, especially in very rural counties with families that may have to go or travel a distance, or maybe transportation isn't available to them to enroll their child in Head Start. But tell us a little bit about what Head Start is doing right now in terms of trying to reach families in those more difficult areas who have those issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that we've been working on is one of the things that the state made clear, even though it's always sort of been true, is particularly in rural areas, it's hard to often, if busing, transportation is an issue. And so we went back and made it very clear that the Head Start supplemental money could be used for not just what we call a center-based or a classroom model, but for a home visiting model. Because in some rural places, there's just not enough. If you were going to try to put a classroom of 3-year-olds together, you'd be busing them an hour and a half a day. But a home visitor can go out once a week and work with parents and provide activities and help that parent figure out how to support that child in the home. So that's one way where rural programs and getting more resources to rural programs we've been working on, because yes, transportation in rural counties are a serious issue, and finding program models that are actually work for the families in rural places.
Yeah, and that's, of course, the important thing for those who may not be familiar with Head Start is that Head Start actually is a dual-purpose program in terms of it's not a program that only helps the child, but it's working with the parents and the other family members in terms of preparing them in working with the child.
Yeah, that's well said. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Blair, the federal Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge that Pennsylvania received, there's all sorts of initiatives that go along with that. And does that fit into any of the priorities at Head Start?
Well, it does, but so there's priorities there around data, about assessment and outcomes, about infrastructure. But the challenge for Head Start is we've got federal requirements and then we have state requirements, and we're always trying to figure out how to integrate the two, because it's you've got some classrooms have literally state-funded children and Head Start, federal funded. So you can't even say this is a federal classroom, this is a state classroom. They're mixed together.
Right. And
so every time, if the state has one idea of assessment and then the federal government has another idea of assessment, and then it gets complicated. But the priorities are all priorities that are Head Start priorities. For example, all of the Head Start programs are being required to identify child outcomes, how they're going to measure those outcomes, and how they are going to then improve the quality of their program based on the data they get about whether they're making progress towards those outcomes, which is completely consistent with the goals of Race to the Top to improve child outcomes. The trick is, if everyone has a slightly different idea of what they're supposed to be doing, it's a little challenging to integrate all that. One of the great parts about going back to government that works is we do have an administration that's really trying to think about how to make this simple and not duplicative, and so that it actually is better outcomes for children. I think the other challenge here is we know, given the level of monitoring that many of our early learning teachers, whether it's pre-K counts or Head Start supplemental, they're doing so much monitoring and data, some of them feel very frustrated because they're not actually having time to teach or build relationships with the children. So while we're completely in line with those goals, we feel really challenged to both meet those goals of Race to the Top and continue to have the resources to really do the work in the classrooms.
Blair, your background is in addressing the economic human rights of poor people. First, can you explain what you mean by that? And second, how does addressing the economic human rights of poor impact on their children's education?
Right. So I've done lots of work in various times around what's referred to as economic human rights. So what does that mean? In the 1940s, there was a set of economic human rights recognized by the UN, and concretely what it means is the right to health care, housing, education, and food. And in the United States, we tend to feel like the right means someone better give it to me and I don't need to do anything about it. But the actual world agreement about economic human rights, a right is not that someone needs to hand it to you. It means you have status and reason to speak to your governments, to the non-governmental organizations about there's a reason that you need to listen to me about the need for food or housing or education, but it's not hand it to me on a platter. It's I have status, you have status, and we need to work together, and I have the right to fight for the need, my needs. So I think for some people they find the word right a little difficult, but the way right means in this context is people need to think about how do we work together, build governments, build resources where people have their basic needs met. Currently, some of the best work that's happening around this is by an organization here in Pennsylvania called Put People First, and their website is putpeoplefirstpa.org, and they're doing lots of great work around getting people to tell stories, and they're focused particularly around the right to health care, because it continues, even with the ACA, to be a really serious issue for many people. And so the Put People First people in PA have been really organizing around health care. And the second group that's still doing a lot of really good work out of Philadelphia is the Media Mobilizing Project, and their website is mediamobilizing.org. And that both of those groups are, particularly the Media Mobilizing, but both of those groups put a lot of emphasis around telling stories and getting people to tell their stories and their challenges. And that still really matters. I think it's a part, some of the best work that we've done around Head Start or getting people to understand the needs of Head Start families have been when Head Start parents have had a chance to actually tell their story effectively and talk about the challenges that being low income or having a child with a disability or homeless places in their face as they try to think about their child and their child's educational needs. So, the first step of good advocacy is people that can actually tell their story and communicate it effectively, and then that usually leads to, how do we do the policy work and the funding work to meet those needs.
Yeah.
It's hard work, but it's some of the most exciting work I've ever done.
I know. I know that you're very passionate about that, and you've developed a workshop that educates people about their human rights. And so on that notion, can you explain your belief in how any effort that threatens Head Start is a threat to people's economic human rights?
Well, the Head Start, first of all, Head Start works to meet the basic educational needs of a child, so that's true.
Right.
Second of all, Head Start works with parents. It has a family partnership agreement. One of the discussions is how is the parent doing? Do they have a job? Do they want a job? How do we work towards getting you a job? Do you need more education? How do we get you more education? So as you said before, Head Start's not just about the child. And most of our families are low enough income that they get insurance through Medicaid, but some are working. And if they don't have insurance, we work to get them insurance so that their right to health care is met. But the last most basic part for me is, part of the reason that the so much support for Head Start and early learning is that the Federal Reserve Bank's researchers, when asked what you would do to build up a community, to build it up economically, they think the primary thing, one of the most important things you can do, is have high-quality early learning. And they're saying do that before you build businesses. They're putting that, and that's why we talk about a return on investment, like if you're going to invest in a community. So if you're going to invest in meeting people's basic human rights, and that means economic development here in the United States, then you would do Head Start and high-quality early learning. So any attack on Head Start or any attempt to dismantle that is really dismantling the effort to build up our communities and build up the resources we need to meet everybody's needs.
That's well said, Blair. I just wanted to preface, I know we mentioned about the budget impasse. I just wanted to, since this is recorded and this will be on the 22nd, hopefully there might be a budget by then. Hopefully
don't hold your breath.
Yeah, hopefully we will have a budget. And of course, you're looking for an increase in that state supplemental funding, correct?
Yeah. And so what's exciting is even the bare bones budget that's not really a budget increased. It has expansion money for pre-K counts of $25 million and Head Start supplemental $5 million. If they actually pass a real budget, the budget that the Senate's passed, or any one of the other proposals, that money could double. It should be $60 million. It should be $50 million for pre-K counts and $10 million for the Head Start supplemental. So while I'm, today here on January 7th saying we have good news, we're hoping to continue to push because the governor's laid out an impressive effort to improve education and early learning, and we too completely support that, and we're hoping that we can have our leadership come together and agree and pass a budget that's, a complete budget. So it's possible that there's going to be even more good news. I'm not sure it'll be resolved by the time this program ends on the 22nd. It may be the message is people need to keep advocating and pushing our leaders to do what we elected them to do.
Absolutely. Blair, our time has flown by. I really, really appreciate you being on the program. We're going to have you back again, I'm sure, especially after the budget is passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to congratulate you also on your work, on your passion for human rights, particularly economic human rights, because I think it's so valid in our society today. And but again, thank you so much, and good luck with all that you do for our kids in Head Start.
And I just really appreciate the time, and I feel humbled that I get to represent over 41,000 children and their families in the Head Start programs. And I just would be remiss if I didn't say this is really about the children in the programs, and I get to be the voice for that, but it's really a lot of hardworking people, as you pointed out, in every part of the state.
Absolutely.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at the same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.